On this episode of Region Automotive, we create a mess,
Well, what a gosh darn mess that was.
we complain a little bit,
That was harder than it needed to be.
we find unwanted black gold,
That's just drenched in oil.
we find a vacuum leak,
Yeah, here's one vacuum leak.
and finally, I ask for your help.
So I'm curious what you guys have to say this time. Well, what a gosh darn mess that was. This car was parked outside. It was pretty cold out, minus 20, minus 30 degrees Celsius overnight. It's parked outside. So originally when I got it, it's been sitting for quite a while. So the battery was dead every time I went to look at it. We had to jump it, but it's warmer out, so it started right away. And this thing was sitting outside in like the minus 30 deep freeze. And I went to start it today and battery was dead, obviously. And then I put like jumper packs on. The jumper packs wasn't enough to boost it. I did like the boost function on the battery charger. That wasn't enough. I did like a battery in series with the battery charger. So I was messing around and I had the key in the ignition and I closed the door quickly just to like mess with the cables, and I put the power to the car, and then I guess it automatically locked the car. So then I had to call a locksmith and pay $310 to get the key out. It took him 5 freaking minutes, but anyway, finally I charged up the battery enough, got like a jumper pack, battery charger, whatever, got it started in the shop. So the first thing I'm doing is changing the battery. And the reason why I couldn't change it in the first place is because it's in the wheel well in this vehicle. So we're gonna lift it up, take the tire off, take the wheel well off, and get a new battery in there to be done with this headache. I'm so upset that I had to spend that money to just messing around trying to get it started, and the keys got locked in the car, but whatever, it happened. So anyway, we're gonna lift it up and get that battery replaced. We got the wheel and the fender liner, or part of the liner, off there. You can just see how frozen that battery is. Like that's frozen in there, but luckily I got to it. So let's get the old one out and the new one in. That was harder than it needed to be. Man, that it's kind of tight in there, getting like the battery bolts and this hold down, and just behind the fender liner, like I don't understand why automakers put it in the fender. Probably to save space, but you know, battery's such a commonly serviced item. Like it just, I don't know. To me, it makes sense to put it under the hood somewhere where it's easy, but could just be me. Maybe I'm just complaining, but anyway, I'm going to lower it and start it up and make sure that everything's connected fully and it's working before I put everything back together here. I'm pretty sure it's going to start, but just to show you guys. Nice. That's awesome to have that start under its own power with all that messing around. Okay, so now that that's done, let's move on to the next mechanical repair on this thing. So I lifted the car up and I was just doing some poking around under the lift just to double check everything, because I have to take it for a drive to reveal the next issue with it. And I noticed when I started it outside earlier today that it's smoking quite a bit from the back of the engine bay. So just kind of want to take a look at things. Like overall, looks actually pretty good. I can't even say decent, like pretty good. The previous owner told me they did suspension, like the struts look new, CV axle boots are good. No crazy rust on the subframe. All the exhaust seems to be there. It's not making any noise. You do have slight seepage like at the oil filter housing there, for example, or like at the pans, but that's pretty normal. But what I did notice, let's see the back of the head there? Like you're looking at the black valve cover, meaning the back of the head, that's just drenched in oil. So I'm gonna have to do valve cover gaskets on this thing too. That's why it was smoking from the back of the engine when I started it. Like you can just see all that oil. So I'll pick up some valve cover gaskets today, but we're gonna take it for a drive so I can show you the other issue with it. So I was able to replicate the code, which is good. I was getting a little worried because like I took it for like, I don't know, 10, 15 minute drive, and it seemed to be running just fine. It wasn't replicating the code. I was going to take it home and drive it for the day just to see if it comes back. So I went to the shop, parked it, cleaned up, and then got back in the car, started it to take it home, and it started misfiring and the code came up. So that's good. So now I know too, when I go take it for a test drive, to make sure, once I replace the part here, to make sure that it doesn't come back, I'll like turn off the car on and off a couple times to make sure. But anyway, so the code is P0206, injector circuit open, cylinder 6. Cylinder 6 misfire detected. So this is really good. For me, whenever I get misfires, I get a little nervous. Well, not nervous, but like it's more work or like more thinking, I guess, if it's a multiple cylinder misfire. But as soon as you have it down to a single cylinder misfire, makes it a lot easier for the diagnosis and fixing. And then especially in this case, I have cylinder 6 with injector circuit open, cylinder 6. So that's telling me pretty much what that's, when it's open, it's telling me that the injector, like there's a little electromagnet in there and it's not closing properly to activate the injector. So the injector is probably just old and sticking, or you can have an issue with the wiring, but most cases it's the injector. So I actually have, this video will come out before, I have a Dodge van and it also had a misfire code in this exact injector, but it's for like cylinder 4 or something. And originally on that one, I swapped the injector to see if the misfire followed, and it did. So then I replaced the injector, but just because I went through that with the van, I'm not going to swap the injectors on this one. I'm just going to take the gamble and replace injector 6, which I think is a pretty good bet. And then if you remember from the earlier clip, our valve cover gasket was like puking, so I got a set of gaskets. Here's our injector. We got a little bit of work ahead of ourselves. Got to take the cover off, intake has to come off, and then I'm hoping, I think once I take the intake off, the valve cover should be fairly accessible. So let's get set up and get right to work. So just to get you caught up on what I'm doing under here, this is really where the lift pays off. Like I was having issues accessing, I'll show you in a sec here, the back intake manifold bolt, just the bracket bolt, I guess. You know, I was having issues with the 1/4-inch drive ratchet, and it's a weird angle, and I didn't want to put too much torque on it. I didn't want to strip it. So I'm like, oh, I have the lift, I think. And then I saw, like, I looked above and I could see like a clear path, like through the exhaust tunnel to the bottom of the car. So I'm like, oh, I have a lift. I should lift it up and see if I could access that bolt. So that's exactly what I did. Focus. So yeah, right now my ratchet, I have a wobble 13 mil socket on the end there, and then just a bunch of extensions coming down from the back of the engine to my ratchet. I was already able to break the bolt loose. So it's just, you know, a small thing like this with the lift is the difference between stripping a bolt and ruining your day on the back of the intake, or taking your time and thinking about it from another perspective. So a couple observations now that I have the intake off. If I were to guess, I would say the intake's never been off before, just by the amount of dust that's on that back valve cover. And then you can see where it's all dark and wet there where the cover meets the head. So yeah, all that oil is just puking out onto the exhaust. So it's good we're doing the valve covers. To do those, they don't look too bad. Just gotta take these, first I'll take the coil packs off, then I'll take these 10mm bolts and the covers will come right off. And then for the injector, I have to search up which one's number 6, and then it's just the fuel rail is held on with those, looks like 14mm bolts. The fuel rail will come off, and then the injector just, I'll unplug it and then just clip it out and replace number 6. So as you saw, we ended up having to take off the alternator just because it was covering the valve cover slightly there. I don't think it would have came off easily or at all.
So it wasn't that hard to take off. Actually, there's a belt tensioner there, 15 mil bolt. So I just loosened the tensioner, took the belt off, and it's held on with two bolts. And then I had these unplugged anyway to get the cover off. One thing I noticed actually, this is usually a good indicator of like how well the engine has been taken care of. And like this one has, like, this one actually looks really clean. This has 268,000 kilometers, so this many miles. And like, yeah, it looks, there's like no sludge built up in there. Just fresh oil, like no sludge or varnish on the back wall there. Here's all your rocker arms, I guess, with lifters in the top there. Yeah, no, this looks really good. So that's good. That's been taken care of. And then, yeah, so now in the meantime, I will just clean that surface there, just kind of scrape off that sandy, oily crap, clean that all off. Then I'm going to get behind there and try to clean off the exhaust as much as I can. So like the residual oil, try to get the residual oil off so it doesn't burn once I run it. And then clean up the valve covers. And actually our gasket's pretty hard there. Like, yeah, that's actually really tough to get out of the groove. I just had to work that out with a screwdriver for like 30 seconds. I thought that maybe the gasket might be brittle enough where it breaks. Not quite, but it was just like, you know, it's losing its rubber properties or whatever. Like, it's just really tight in that groove. So yeah, anyway, gasket's toast, as you can see on the backside there. So we'll get everything cleaned up and put it back together. So now that we have everything cleaned up, let's get our valve covers back on. Okay, with the valve cover gaskets replaced, let's do our number 6 fuel injector now. All right, with our fuel injector in, let's get the intake back on. I think I have it back together enough to run it. Before I put everything back together, like the little brackets and the cover, so I want to run it. For one, just make sure everything's plugged in, all the vacuum hoses, coil pack plug, injector plugs, make sure there's no fuel leaks, all that stuff. And then I'm also going to spray a little bit of brake cleaner around the intake just to make sure I have no intake leaks before I put everything fully back together. So you guys take a look and let me know if it starts and how it runs. Yeah, here's one vacuum leak. Let's plug that in. Maybe. Okay, there you go. So we had one vacuum leak. That's not too bad. That's pretty expected when you take that whole ordeal off. We will have lots of smoke burning off with the residual oil and all that brake cleaner I sprayed on there. So it seems to be running good. I'm just going to spray a little bit around the intake. I think there's no leak. I think we would have noticed by now. Yep, everything is running just fine. So let's take it for a drive and see if our misfire is gone. So last we left off, I finished installing the intake with the new fuel injector. I was going to take you guys for a drive and test the fuel injector, but I ran out of the time that day and also my phone died, so I wasn't able to record anything. So I'll just kind of tell you what happened. So first I was backing up the SUV, the journey out of my shop, and I noticed that I had like a trail of oil like following me as I backed up. And then I looked in the shop and there's actually a huge puddle of oil on the ground. So I'm like, that's not good. So I pulled it back in, put it up on the lift, looked from behind, and of course the valve cover gasket wasn't properly seated in the valve cover, so it was leaking oil right out of the back of the engine there when I was running it. I don't know about you guys, but like pretty much every time I do a valve cover, I can't get the gasket to seat properly, or the gasket, I can't get it to seat properly. Yeah, so anyway, that's pretty expected. Like I've dealt with that issue many times. So luckily I didn't like cut the valve cover gasket when I put it on the first time. So I was able to take the intake off. It did take me a lot less time. The second go around, took the intake off, took the valve cover off, reseat the gasket, put it back on, ran it for a little bit, and it wasn't leaking. So that's good. I'm glad I got that sealed without having to buy a new gasket. And then I took the vehicle for a drive. It wasn't misfiring originally like it was doing before. I drove it for about 5 minutes and then I stopped, shut it off, locked the locks, unlocked it. That kind of just like resets the computer, puts it in sleep mode or whatever. Turned it on, did that a few times and it wasn't misfiring. So I'm pretty confident that fuel injector fixed it and it wasn't leaking. So all the mechanical repairs are done on it. So what I have left to do is detail it and list it and sell it. But I ran out of time this week, so I'm going to get you guys this video, and this is where I need your help deciding how much to list it for, and hopefully, fingers crossed, how much it ends up selling for in the end. So I'll go over my costs, and then you guys can let me know what you think I should list it for down below. So my first cost obviously was, well, it'll be obvious in a sec. My first cost was purchasing the vehicle. That's the obvious cost. That was $13.50, so I actually got a pretty good price on that one, in my opinion. The battery, like I said, that was like stone dead. Like even when I took it out when it was super cold there, it was like a frozen ice cube. I like dropped it on the shop floor and I could just hear like a solid, like dense piece of ice essentially in the battery. So that was totally toast. That was $105. Then the fuel injector to fix our misfire there, that was $65. I hate saying this, but it was an expense on this project. My fault. Cost more than all the parts combined. To get the key, the locksmith to come and take the key out of the vehicle was $310. That hurts me. I tried to negotiate with the guy even when he came, but I called like a locksmith company and he told me like through the company that's like the fixed cost, but it seemed like this guy's like a contractor guy. It took him 5 minutes, which kind of annoys me even more, but he gave me his personal number and he says next time, hopefully there isn't a next time, he'll charge me $100 to get the key, which is more in line what I think that should cost. Like I'm still, like one, I'm upset I locked the key, and I'm even more upset that cost me $310, but whatever, what can you do? And then the valve cover gasket, that was a little bit more than I was expecting as well. That was $60. So that puts my total cost into this vehicle so far, $1,825. I was thinking might be a little high. It's a 2009, has good set of tires, no mechanical issues now. A little bit higher K, 268,000. I think that's 166,000 miles that turned out to be. All-wheel drive, which again is good in my climate with the winter tires. So I was gonna try for 45. Hopefully get somewhere around 4. So if I end up getting that 4, that puts my profit at $2,175. That may be a little hopeful. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think I should sell it for and what it's worth. Last time I did this, people told me it's worth $3. So I'm curious what you guys have to say this time. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, that's all I got this week. So thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and have a good day.